Welcome to Daily Life Connection, our video talk time, as we continue to explore who God is and how He works and what difference that makes in how we walk through the difficult times in life. I want to continue with the thought of prayer today um, because I think that's just very appropriate right now. In Psalm chapter 16, verse 11, the writer says, "In the presence of God, there is fullness of joy. In your presence there is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore." When we get in the very presence of God, the writer is telling us what we find there is joy. Now, I know we all know that verse probably, and we all think, well, of course, but I'm not convinced that most of us really believe that. I think when we come to God, more often we think of Him as being an examiner. Maybe we're taking an oral exam to see if we can pass it and maybe get a good mark from Him. Or He's a stern judge and we are there to plead our case to see if He will release to us what we believe we need. Uh, or He's a stern disciplinarian who's going to tell us what we're doing wrong so that He can ease up on us. I really believe with all my heart that those are more religious views of who He is than actual biblical views of who He is, and certainly is not the Father that Jesus showed us. And Jesus said, "If you've seen me, you've seen the Father." He said, "My great passion is that you will know who my Father really is. You've heard it said, but I want to tell you what He's really like. In His presence, you're going to find joy." If we think God is like a judge or an oral examiner or the principal at school, prayer just becomes one more duty, doesn't it? And, in normal daily life, perhaps prayer as a duty or an obligation is something that we just do. But when we're in these times like we're going through right now, these times of isolation and aloneness and disquietedness and routines upside down and grief grabbing at us and smothering us, if prayer becomes one more duty, I don't know about you, but I think it's probably true for you too, then I just feel like I just want to avoid it. I don't want to have one more obligation or duty laid on my shoulders today. I'm doing all I can just to get through this and still try to be civil to my family and to maintain my sanity. But if God is a God of joy, if the closer we get to His presence, interesting, the Eastern Orthodox Church talks about prayer as being the movement of our heart toward God and God's response toward us. And there is no greater picture of that than the Luke 15 story of the prodigal moving towards the Father and the Father running towards the Son with His arms wide open, ready to hug, restore, renew. And what is the outcome of all of that? A house of joy. There's a party and a celebration because his heart moved toward the Father and the Father rushed toward him to bring him into that place of joy. That is the picture I want us to see about prayer. That as we move towards God in prayer, whether it's praying the Lord's Prayer or a prayer rope or uh, however it is you just pray to the Lord, that it's a moving of your heart towards Him and that He is responding with joy, excuse me, and His delight, His passion is to bring you into a place of joy, to bring you into a place of celebration and significance and glory. That's just such good news. That's Isaiah said it this way in chapter 12, verse 3, I believe it is. He said, "With joy you will draw water from the wells of salvation." And then in Nehemiah 8:10, wonderful verse, "The joy of the Lord is our strength." You see, I think if we go to God out of a sense of duty and we're trying to convince Him to strengthen us and release His blessing on us and reverse the effects of this pandemic and the horrible things that have gone on in our province, then I'm not sure that we come away strengthened by that. We come away almost more wearied by it. Just like if you go take an oral exam at university or whatever, you come out of there exhausted. But if you go to the party after the exam, you come out of there rejoicing and refreshed. And that's what Jesus has done for us. He took the exam and passed it and gave us his pass to the party so that we can just boldly come right into the party, into the celebration, into the joy of our Lord, of our God. That's just amazing. You see, it's that joy that brings us strength. The joy of the Lord is our strength. And that joy comes from as we go to our Father in prayer and let him lead us into that place of joy. That's my desire for us today, is that as we go to prayer today, whatever form that takes for you, it may be singing, whatever it may be, you may sing your prayers. I don't know. But the point is that our heart moves towards God, and that we fully expect that he will run toward us, embracing us and empowering us to join the party, to join the great celebration. C.S. Lewis said this. He said, "The most serious business of heaven is joy." The most serious thing that goes on in heaven is joy. I love that. That's what he wants to draw you into in prayer. So that is my prayer for all of us today, is that we, as our heart moves toward him, that we will let him draw us into that place of supreme and glorious joy, joy that refreshes, joy that strengthens us, because that's really who he honestly, really is. Jesus said it. That's who my Father is. And I am so thankful for that today. I am so glad for that today. Well, think about this, meditate on it. And again, if you have comments or questions or suggestions, put them in the comments down below. God bless you. We'll talk again tomorrow.